There are insinuations Nigeria is beginning to look like one of the most dangerous places to live in the whole world. And that's quite very disturbing. On that note, I welcome you to our program, Violence Free World. My name is Kali Ikwe, and my guest today is Chris Chukwudumebi Nwakobia Mustafa. Chris, you're welcome to the program.
My pleasure to be here.
By the way, Chris is an activist, a lawyer, an artist, a poet, so many things put together. But we'll be coming right back to speak with Chris just after this. Don't go away. The raging spate of violence in Nigeria has continued to defy all forms of approach at resolving it. Virtually all parts of Nigeria face this challenge, which ranges from banditry in the northwest, kidnapping on our highways, the IPOB menace in the southeast, killer headsmen in the southwest and the Middlebelt, to insurgency in the northeast. Particularly, the new trend of hostage taking for huge ransom, mostly borne by the government, has become rather too often and smacks of complicity from very high quarters.
We also have situations where children are kidnapped at different levels and at different intervals. And what happens at the end of the day is that we take money to go and beg them to release our children to us. So if you are now on a negotiation table, who determines the pace of where the pendulum swings to? Now, if you look at all this, the question is, who is having upper hand as at now? Can we conveniently, boldly, truthfully say that our security is having an upper hand?
Public outcry against this trend has dominated national discourse, with some sectors resorting to self-help by way of vigilante groups, like in the case of Amotekun in the southwest and JTF in the north, a measure that is more or less official by now. The attendant fear and anxiety have brought about a rhetoric of fury as people trade accusations and counter-accusation as to who is responsible for the dastardly acts.
We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes terrorism. We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes kidnapping, abduction, and the like. Now, all these laws have not been put to place against any one of these people. To the best of my knowledge, look at the number of those that were arrested, and after arrest, they will be handed over to their governors as repentant terrorists. This is the only country in the whole world that have had that people will kill villagers, turn children to orphan overnight, sack a whole village, destroy properties that are worth millions of naira, destroy the economy of a state, and at the end of the day, the state itself, the security agencies will hand them over to their governors, and they will be received with high level of puppetry and then joy and all those stuff like that.
Ethnic and religious profiling have regrettably featured too prominently in the blame game, and it is only serving to exacerbate the already bad situation.
Yes. I feel terrible when Nigerians, the average Nigerian, sees crime and criminality within a narrow prison of tribe or religion. It's in vogue now world over that Muslims are really the culprits. Xenophobia. Muslims are seen as terrorists because terrorism is a multi-billion-dollar industry all over. And Muslims, unfortunately, have where it takes because mainly the oil wells are with the Muslim countries. It's all about that.
Dialogue, it is record, holds a potential to ultimately resolve the spate of violence and consolidate our effort at national integration. But just how can we aggregate our opinions to make the dialogue measure work? as we seek a violence-free Nigeria. Welcome back. Yeah, Chris, there's a heightening audacity to perpetrate crime, violence, wreak havoc. There's restiveness everywhere. Would we even call that restiveness now? People are consciously going out there to hit at targets. Sometimes they even give warnings. Nothing is done, and they go there, attack, and come back. And sometimes this is hinged on, or some people rather say it is hinged on previous acts that had gone unpunished. Impunity is beginning to reign high. What's going on?
Troubling, Kali. Troubling, scary, heartrending, benumbing, if you like, befuddling. For the first time in our national circles, I'm troubled to the bone marrows. Because you wonder whether what we have to say is violence, banditry, crisis, conflict democratized. It's no longer about conflict and violence. It's no longer about banditry and trouble in the Northeast. It's about violence everywhere. Like you noted, impunity, audacity of violence, audacity of crisis and conflict. Non-state actors and non-state operators holding the nation by the jugular. That's how bad it is. And I think that the time has come for everyone who truly cares about our country to speak up and speak out. Statesmen and patriots must speak up. We must say no to this orgy of violence. We must say no to this ogre, symptomatic of murderous urchins everywhere. They either are called villains or bandits, insurgents, all kinds of names. But I want to say simply that terrorists who terrorize their nation must be called to order.
Now, Chris, I'd like to get you to speak to this challenge or this claim of this suspicion of people of the audacity being hinged on previous acts not being punished properly. What happened in Imo State? The first major attack had gone unpunished. Nobody has been apprehended thus far. Is that where we are now, that since they can do it in Christian's territory and nothing happens, it can be done here too, and everyone is just exercising violence everywhere?
If you don't punish one act of brigandage, it gives a precursor for another. That's where we are.
The other. Yeah.
You know, one act of impunity begets another. One act of violence begets another. One act of that which is less than proper conduct will create villainy. And that's where we are. But I think that our hope is not lost, really. I would say, in the words of the old sage, may God bless his soul, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, that hope is the last milk in the human breast. I believe that the time has come, and now is, when leadership must rise up to the ante, when those who pretend over this country must do what is needful, right, and right. I say this because we are the precipice as a nation. Things are largely falling apart. There's conflict everywhere. Nigeria has become a monstrous killing field. If it's not murder and banditry and villainy today in the Northwest, it is about killing in the Northeast. If it is not about killing in the Northeast, it is about kidnap for ransom in the North Central. If it is not about killing for ransom in the North Central, it is about murderous urchins and non-state operators dealing violence in the Southeast. Villainy and violence in the Southwest. We have a nation that is troubled and bleeding on all sides. I think that leadership must take initiative and do what is proper and right.
The prevalence has seemed not to spare just any region or any zones just yet now. But let's come home to the outcry. And some people like would say the crime babe the most remain the governor of Benin State, Samuel Otom. You had him make illusions a couple of times, and sometimes even come up to indict the entire presidency, as in lacking capacity or lacking the will to address. In fact, more of lacking the will to actually to deal with the issues and bring to book perpetrators of this act. He actually even gone ahead to say people should be allowed to go a step further in self-defense. People should be licensed to carry rifles and defend themselves, just so anybody looking to attack you would think twice, knowing that you're actually armed and they could fall as a result. Like, I don't know whether you subscribe to that.
Less than sounding emotive and emotional, less than sounding populist and buying the support of those who are troubled like I am. I want to say that I largely disagree with the need to arm the people. And I say this because even without arms, there's conflict, crisis everywhere. Even without arms, non-state operators are dealing massively with the Nigerian state. So what must we do? I think largely where I agree with the governor of Benue State is simply the fact that he has put the blame where it should be. The blame squarely is at the decks of Mr. President. The blame squarely is at his doorstep. He must rise up as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and do what is needful, try to right, which is simply call the state to order. And how will he do that? It is time for a national address. Mr. President must speak to the nation. He must make strong and forceful statements about the fact that he will not let this state of insecurity fester. And unfortunately, that's what he hasn't done this far. And that's why Governor Otom will consistently blame the presidency for the break in law and order. But let me say clearly here that the Nigerian state is bleeding from all sides because we have allowed the tendencies and the sentiments to ethnicity, religion, and ethnic profiling to take over our public space. I say this seriously and advisedly. The reasons simply are that if it is not marauding herdsmen, I don't like to call them Fulani herdsmen because in the investigative processes of the police, we have found out that some people masquerade as Fulani herdsmen to deal havoc. So I'd rather call them marauding herdsmen. And the state must call its crime what it is. I have said time and again, and I want to repeat here, Kali, that Mr. President must show that body language that we talked about in 2015. That body language that evokes some level of fear. That body language that tends to call villains to order. He must bring it back. He must say to the Fulani people that I am Fulani, but I'm primarily the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I care about the security of the Igbo man, the Hausa man, the Yoruba man, and every other tendency in this country. He must say that dispassionately. He must say that proactively. He must say that seriously. And when he does that, those who masquerade as people who are supported like the Mietiala and their likes will understand that President Muhammadu Buhari has spoken. And then what next happens is that those who superintend our security architecture must rise up to call a spade by its name. Well, it is a failure of state to allow banditry, villainy, violence to take over our country. So they must rise up to the challenges of now.
Well spoken, Chris. I think there'll be more on what it is that we need to do, but that will be after we return from this break. This is Violence Free World. We'll be right back after this time out. Be here. Welcome back. You're still watching Violence Free World. My name is Kalipe, and on the hot seat is Chris Chukwudumebi Nwakobia, Mustafa, the barrister at law himself.
My pleasure.
Now, brother, like you were saying before we went on break, you are more or less like advising again what it is that the authorities need to do. Not like they do not know this, but let's come back to how we're masking the issues all over. What is different? Like Governor Otto, let me go back to Governor Otto. He said there's nothing like bandits. These are headsmen. Let me refrain from saying Fulani headsmen. These are headsmen, right? Or marauding headsmen, like you would say. These things are said in this manner just to make the criminals, to make crime look a little smooth and permissible in some aspects, if you ask me. But is this the way to go?
Kali, let me say clearly that oftentimes when I hear state operators sound the way they sound, it's either some governor in the north is saying or blaming some people in the south, or some governor in the north central blaming Mr. President. I simply say that those who superintend our political space should be ashamed.
Really?
Ashamed because the first provision of a constitution regarding leadership is that the primary reason we have leaders is to protect lives and properties. Any governor, any state operator, and indeed the president who cannot protect lives and properties, simply judged by the Constitution, is a failure. And I say this without fear of querulous critics. I say this bluntly. What is profoundly important is that those who superintend the Nigerian state must be forthright and truthful to themselves. If a state government and indeed a state governor hasn't succeeded in protecting its territory, and we're clearly blaming it on the Constitution and the federal police, then there's a lot that they should first of all take responsibility for some level of failure. I disagree with those who, with a swipe of the hand, blames the presidency. I also disagree with the explanations of spokespersons of Mr. President. And I'll tell you why. I have seen a state, the state of Kogi, for instance, which borders about 9 states in the country. Kogi is the safest state in the north, the entire north, even with 9 borders, because the state governor has taken some level of initiative. Tragically, other state governors are outrightly blaming the presidency for not doing certain things right. And I agree that there are a lot the presidency hasn't done rightly. But what are you doing with respect to protecting your territory? That's point number 1. Then point number 2, our dear president must understand that the moment he took the oath of office, he stopped being a Fulani president or Fulani president-elect of Nigeria. He became the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So he must rise beyond the coloration of his ethnicity. He must rise beyond the plumage of his religion. He must rise to become the father of the Igbo man, the Yoruba man, the Hausa man, the Fulani man, the Ibibio, the Joku man, and the likes. He must understand that the challenges of a highly progressive world is about protecting lives and properties and making real the promises of democracy. Unfortunately, he hasn't done so well of that. But that is not to say that there's no hope. Our dear president must understand that he owes Nigerians a huge responsibility, and he must protect us because he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And let me say, Kali, that his spokespersons aren't doing a fantastic job. Because I heard one of the spokespersons, Gabashe, was saying lately that the media is reporting so much of the killings in the country with glee, if you liked. And let me say clearly that accusing the media for reporting what is preponderant and prevalent is unfair. That's some lack of sympathy and empathy. The time has come for him to understand that the media must report what is and say what is. And clearly, If he must defend the president, he should tell the president to do what is needful, right, and right, in which is simply marshal the armed forces and indeed the police and the civil defense to protect the Nigerian people. And the time to do that, perhaps if you like, declare a state of emergency on national security is now.
Well, now that you've spoken to the issue of media, there has been insinuation sometimes that the media, just like Gorbachev had said, and that happens to be his constituency, interestingly. He's a media man in the first place, professionally. And people have been thinking that the media can do a lot better, that they have, their role have served to exacerbate the fear in the land. Probably what we're experiencing is not as deadly as they try to make it seem. But putting on the pedestal, and you want to check now, how well has media done in times of escalating or dousing tension in Nigeria, if you're just going to add to what you have said?
Kali, apart from law, my forte is PR consultancy, and that makes me a media man. Kali, the Nigerian media has been the salvation of the Nigerian enterprise. The Nigerian media took us out of the draconic 9 years, or 8 years if you like, of Ibrahim Babangida. The media helped us in the fight against the annulment of June 12th. The media helped us in bringing to this space what we call this democracy. The media has been the conscience of the Nigerian establishment. And I think that anybody who, by way of direct or indirect insults, throws vitriols at the media, ends my slap, if you like. I said this advisedly because you don't expect the media to tell what is not. The media is doing a profound job of its responsibilities. I believe that anybody who sees the media as purveyors of hate or negative reportage is not fair to the Nigerian enterprise. And let me say clearly that those who speak for this presidency must understand that they need a forthright media to succeed. The media will tell you exactly what it is. And Kali, let me paint a picture which is very lucid. You wake up every morning. You're either confronted with murder and kidnappings in Kaduna, or you're confronted with villainy and banditry in police stations being burned down in the southeast. Kali, these are true situations of what is. You're either confronted with insurgents holding sway in the northeast, or you're confronted with herders mowing down farmers in the southwest. These are true situations. Kali, you are either confronted with murderous urchins in Guma in Benue State, or you're dealt with pictures of people who are taken into hostage and being murdered in Zamfara or Niger State. These are lucid, true situations of what is. And so what are we saying? Salute the media and ask the media to work with you in making things better. That's what I expect of this government.
Okay, now going forward, let's move forward now to the solutions, right? There's been talks recently, and then interestingly, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is finally calling in help from the United States of America, possibly maybe other entities. Do you think this is the right way to go, or we should have done this? Is this coming late, or we should have done this since?
My mentor, Martin Luther King Jr. once said that we're held together in a single garment of mutuality, held by a garb of oneness. What affects one directly affects the other indirectly. So, should we have done this before now? Yes. Why not partner with other established and advanced democracies and bring into, if you like, causing a capitulation in the insurgency that exists? Don't forget that ISIS had taken over Iraq until the Americans were brought in there. Don't forget that repeatedly, even Israel with its Mossad had partnered with the American security establishment to hold off the Hamas And as I talk to you, what is clearly important, and which is salutary, if you like, is the fact that the presidency is coming down from its high horse to accept the fact that it needs to partner with the Americans and, if you like, other established democracies in dealing with that which has become a sour tomb for our country. And let me say, Kali, as you and I talk, largely, very strongly, it bothers me that we live in a country which otherwise were very peaceful. I grew up in this country. I was born in the 70s. I saw a country that was largely peaceful. But Kali, as I grew older, precisely within the past 10 years, suicide has become a tradition. Suicide bombing has become a fad in Nigeria. And that's a failure of leadership. So if leadership is beginning to say, okay, we want some support from foreign governments and countries, I think I should applaud them. Because whether we like it or not, it was Majek Fashek, one of the greatest reggae acts of Nigerian history, who said that a living dog, and he quoted from the great philosopher called the King Solomon, a living dog is greater than a dead lion. I think that we need the safety of the masses of our country to progress. We cannot advance our country and our promises and our expectations and ambition in a situation of conflict where murderous urchins and villains hold sway. I think that the time to do what is right is now.
Well, Chris, I think that's a very good point to leave it. There's so much that we can talk to the issue of this insurgency, banditry, headsmen, all sorts.
But Kali, can I steal in this? Very briefly.
Go ahead.
The time has come for us to declare a state of emergency on security. The time has come for us to declare a state of emergency on education. And the time has come for this country to declare a state of emergency on medical health.
Well, Chris, at this point, I'd like to thank you very much for your time.
The pleasure is profoundly mine.
Well, I've been speaking with Chris Chukwudumebi Mustafa Nwakubia, barrister at law, activist, poet, philosopher, everything in one person. Well, same time next week promises even a better edition if you endeavor to be here. And until I return your way, remember to remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you for watching.
No.